What's going on, everybody? We are back with another update ramble progress video here. This is the solo hardcore group Iron four-man team. So let's just dive right into some of the topics. So, a couple things that I would like to share that happened very recently is that I started to go back to Barrows. So, for those who aren't aware, I am in the process of prepping fully for the God Wars takeover, which will be um, first trying out Zammy and then moving to Bandos. Armadil will be involved as well, and then eventually Sarah as well. So, in doing so, with each type of God Wars boss, there will be some obstacles to overcome. So, for example, to start off, we will be doing Zammy, right? Because I would like to get a spear for Bandos. My main tank will be using a Zammy spear as a Hosta because it acts as it's a powerful weapon and it adds a lot of defensive bonuses as a one-handed weapon, which is kind of unique. Not many weapons in the game offer defensive stats, but the Zamorakian Hosta actually has a nice little chunk of range defense and other defenses. I believe it just has defense and everything. So yeah, it's a nice little one hand and it's a very powerful weapon. So you don't really lose too much DPS downgrading from like a whip or a tentacle whip. So yeah, that's excellent. And it's a Zammy item, so it'll save me the inventory space when getting kill count for Bandos because you're going to want some Zammy protection as well as Bandos protection because there are Bandos minions galore and there's a couple annoying Zammy minions while getting Bandos kill count. There's like a vampire and an ogre. Actually, no, the ogre's Bandos. There's a vampire and there's a Gorak, so definitely the Gorak and a Hellhound up there. Some high level NPCs you do not want to get attacked by while getting the 40 goblin kill count. So yeah, Zammy will be the first God Wars that we encounter, and I will be hunting a spear so that we have access to Bandos. Another key component of doing Bandos will be things like a Dragon Warhammer. So I do have 3 of those, so I will just be bringing all of them on my 3 attackers. So I have 4 accounts. 1 will be tanking, 3 will be attacking. The 3 attackers will be most likely Dragon Warhammer specking every single kill if possible, and then switching to a tent whip. My main tank, I will just camp the Zammy Hosta because I want the defensive stats and it's just less fuss to deal with on my tank. Plus, I don't even have a 4th hammer. Even if I did, I would probably opt out of bringing it. And it's also just nice to have the hammer because it acts as just a regular hammer tool in getting through the door to get to Bandos. So for my tank, I will just have to drop like some anglerfish outside the door and then pick up a hammer from goblins that you kill for kill count and then use it to get through the door, drop some more items in there, and then come back out the door, pick up the items that I dropped to pick up the hammer, and then go back through, dropping the hammer finally inside, and then picking up the remaining fish that I dropped. So there's a way to juggle stuff so that you don't actually lose any inventory space, but it's convenient to just have the Warhammer on me. Some other prep items that are in progress is the hard combat achievements. So that's going to cut down my kill count requirements to, I believe. Let me actually look this up. I believe it lowers the kill count from 40 to 35. It might be 30. So real quick, I'm just gonna look up the hard rewards. Actually, it's not showing me the rewards. Ah, here we go. So the hard tier 35 instead of 40. Yeah, so um yeah, I could just get 40, but again, I'm doing this like multiple times. I'm going to do this for every God Wars. I'm going to do this for 4 accounts. So just being able to stop at 35 or anything less if I manage to somehow get the elite combat achievements as well. The elite tier lowers it to 30 from 35, so little nice quality of life there, but not super important. But I do just want to complete that because I already have the hard tier unlocked on my main account here. Um, the main group hardcore that I will be using to raid and such. I did a ton of Sire. I did some Cerberus. You know, he's done lots of other bosses here and there like Calphite Queen. So I have the hard unlocked, and I'm going to be working on weaving in some Calphite Queen and Cerb and Abyssal Sire, maybe even some Grotesque Guardians. So those four-ish bosses, and then there's stuff like Deranged Archaeologist. You know, I could go snipe a Giant's Key or a Mossy Key to do Obor or Bryophyta. These guys have a little bit of combat achievements tied to them, so if I really needed just a few extra points and do something pretty safe, you know, I have those as an option. But in general, yeah, I should be able to get those hard combat achievements done pretty easily and then have that reduced kill count. Um, what I wanted to get into right at the start, I started to talk about at the beginning of this video, is that recently I have been doing some Barrows in the hopes to fill out some of my missing components for gear. So some of the items that I am missing. So I believe I have 3 full Guthans sets. I have duplicate Guthans pieces for the 4th set, which is not a full 4th set, so I might be missing like, you know, I might be missing like the plate body or something and the skirt or something for the 4th one. So I might try to snipe the 4th set, but I don't know if I'm going to want to manage using 4 sets of Guthans to heal. That would be kind of crazy. It's a lot of switching. I have to watch everybody's health too. You know, as you switch to that full tank gear, you lose all your magic defense from switching off the Carol's top. So whoever the minions are on might get hit a lot by the mage. Who knows? But I think the way Bando's minions work, or that the player who attacked him last typically gets all of the minions on them. So what I'll end up doing is I'll just keep praying mage on that player with piety, and then all the other 3 can take off prayers. Maybe just like throw on piety for some extra boosted hits to try and get those big heals from Guthans. But other than that, 3 Guthan sets should be fine. I think my main tank will definitely have one because it's important to heal up to full on my tank. If my alts aren't full HP at the start of the kill, that's probably okay. I'm most likely going to be utilizing anglerfish tactics for bandos, and that's because, or for any God Wars really, because the minions will chip down my alts as the kill goes on, and I don't want to have to fuss with like constantly brewing and restoring and then repotting with the super combat, right? That's just a lot of management that I'm going to have to do between all 4 accounts. So I would like to just have like a super combat rolling for 2 to 3 kills and then just use like an anglerfish or 2 to top myself off. Anglerfish heal you above your max health. So say I'm missing like 11 HP, so I'm at 88 out of 99. I can just eat an anglerfish, which will not only heal that 11 that I'm missing, but then go above the remainder of the anglerfish. So I'll be nice and topped off there for that kill. So yeah, a lot of prep goes into this whole process, and you know, I have like a lot of these prep checklists completed. You know, I got most of the gear. I got the herb lore level for the potions. I got the supplies. So it's just a matter of finishing out and rounding off a lot of these remaining stats. Finishing some of the gear. So again, back to Barrows. The 4th Guthan set, I don't know if it's going to be worth it. I guess only time will tell. After my first trip and experimenting in there, I might see, is it really worth it to get another set? Or just have one account kind of be like a brew chugger in between kills because he won't have Guthans to heal with. So I'm just going to have to do some experimentation and see if that works, because I just don't want to have to do a ton more Barrows. I did go back and do some Barrows, and I actually managed to snipe one of the items that I was really hoping to get. And one of the items that I think will be just absolutely extremely valuable in any God Wars really is the Varric skirt. So a Varric skirt has 3 prayer bonus on it, and it is basically one of the strongest tank legs in the game. It has a little bit less range defense than like a Darox or Torag's legs. But that's the only difference. The other defenses are exactly the same. And I believe it has 0 negative magic defense. And since I'm praying range, that's basically as good as positive magic defense because those other tank legs have a heavy negative attachment in the mage defense department. So going from like a tank legs, like a Darok plate leg, which I have plenty of. I have plenty of Daroks and Torags to substitute if needed. Going from that to like a Varix skirt means now I have 3 prayer bonus, which will amplify my prayer sustained throughout the entire God Wars encounter. Definitely praying in overhead and piety constantly, and not being able to do any prayer flicking to abuse, prayer points. Uh, my prayer is going to drain a lot. I'm going to be going through a lot of super restores, so just having that extra little pray bonus is pretty massive for just the quality of life. So the Varric Skirt will definitely be a huge upgrade, and I went to Barrows, and the first item I got after doing Barrows, now I've already done like 600 or 700, so I already have plenty of items, but I went back just looking for Varric Skirts, and maybe I guess the Guthan set if I could snipe it. First item, Varric Skirt, and I was just like, oh my god, like, can't believe I actually the one item that appeared in the loot because I was going a little bit dry. I probably did like 20 or 30 chests, and I'm like, dang, I'm really expecting some items by now. First item I got was a second Varric Skirt, so that's my second in total. Already had the one, so I'm like, okay, let's keep it rolling. I got a couple more dupe items like an Aram's robe and a Guthan's war spear, but then eventually I actually sniped another Varric Skirt, and I was just like, oh my god, I was really blown away by that. Um, Extremely lucky to have gotten 2 Varric Skirts, and that's the only item realistically I was searching for. So I was extremely happy to see that in the chest. And I did try a little bit more after, but I was like, you know what? I don't know when my 4th one's going to trickle in. At this point, I think I was going to just cut my losses. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just wear. I'll have to figure it out because the Guthan's chain skirt would be convenient to just rock on the 4th account that is not wearing a Varric skirt, but it does lack a little bit in defensive stats. I think it might have a lot less defensive stats than just like a Torag leg, and it'll still carry that negative mage bonus defense. So, I'm wondering, is it going to be worth it to bring like a Torag's leg instead of the Guthan skirt, or just rock the Guthan skirt for inventory space wise? Because then I won't have to bring an extra switch in my inventory. But bringing 4 accounts, now that I think about it, with 4 accounts, bringing full brews and restores and a full inventory worth of supplies, I should probably be using as many gear swaps as I can. But again, it just comes down to remembering that, I have multiple accounts to manage here. I'm going to be managing 4 inventories and 4 HPs, 4 prayers, 4 spec bars, 4 equipment swaps. So any gear swaps that I can save myself the effort and not have to fuss with, it's going to be a huge quality of life improvement for the entire God Wars fights. So my plan is to just sort of camp the Guthan skirt on the one account, and then the other 3 accounts will have the Varric skirts. So I'll have a Varric skirt on everybody with a Guthan switch to heal, and then my other remaining account that doesn't have the Varric skirt will just rock the Guthan's skirt because I'll be switching to it to heal anyway. So just not having a legs swap in terms of gear is just one less item to have to kind of worry about. So yeah, really, really huge luck coming in there, sniping those 2 Varric skirts. It couldn't have been better. So a little bit of other preparation factors to go into. So yeah, trying to get Zamorak God Wars as a Slayer task. Now it's just Greater Demons, but I have multiple accounts, so I'm gonna have to unlock task storage for Slayer, which costs 1,000 Slayer points. So I have plenty of points. It's not going to be the issue. There really won't be any issue with this. I just have task storage unlocked, which cost 1,000 to get, and then now with that unlocked, I can just store tasks willingly. You can store one task, and it allows you to then withdraw that task whenever you want, as long as you have no task currently. So I can get a Greater Demon task and then store it and then continue slaying, knowing that whenever I try to go to God Wars, I can just withdraw that stored task after I complete my next one and then get all of my 4 accounts to have that Greater Demon task for Zami. So my gear, it'll look something like, Slayer helmet, Carol's top, Varric skirt, Primordials or Dragon boots, Berserker rings for the attackers. I have a Ring of Suffering imbued for my tank, so that's excellent. I have basically the best in slot ring for every single one of my accounts, minus the new Desert Treasure 2 rings. Obviously don't have that quest done yet. So yeah, Barrows gloves are excellent because, okay, yeah, Ferocious gloves are technically better for offense, but then you lose all that defense. Again, this is a war of attrition. This is not like a greedy DPS race. That's why I really like, the hardcore aspect of Iron Man, is that you sort of throw out the window all those extremely greedy maneuvers and gear selections, in that, you have to worry about your health. You have to worry about your defense. So, dropping all the gloves defensive bonuses of Bear's gloves to Ferocious gloves, which gives slightly higher attack bonuses, it's just not going to be worth it. Bear's gloves are perfectly fine, and they give a ton of really, really good and powerful stats. They give a lot of accuracy and strength, and then they add 12 to all your defensive stats as well. I believe there's still some magic in there. There's like half of it goes to magic, so it's like +6 or something magic defense. Magic defense is going to be really important for the mage minion. Again, keep in mind, every single one of my accounts will be susceptible to getting chipped away by minions. The ranged and the mage minion will most likely be constantly chipping away. I think what I will be doing in Bandos and Zami is I'll be praying ranged and piety on my attacker accounts, and since they're wearing a Carol's top and a Varric skirt, Carol's top gives a ton of magic defense, and then the Varric skirt having 0 negative magic defense, whereas other tank leg alternatives do have negative mage defense, I'm fairly resistant to the mage minion from chipping me down. So my attackers should be good to go. And then my main tank will be praying the best style against the boss, which will definitely have to be pray melee. And then I'll also be wearing like the Carol's top. So because I have pray melee and pray ranged on all of my accounts, I don't have to worry as much about wearing like ultra tank gear. I'm basically wearing the Carol's top on all 4 for Zami and Bandos, because it's going to give me that magic defense resistance against the mage minions. So instead of chipping me down for up to 15s every single time, his damage is going to be limited, because he'll typically splash probably half the time, which will save me a ton of health over the course of the fight and just the entire trip in general. So yeah, a lot of good reasons to wear things like Barrows gloves, Carol's top, Varric skirt, especially for God Wars in a team scenario, and especially one in my scenario where I am just solo by myself there, having to manage all 4 of the accounts, health and prayer. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be extremely hard. I think it's going to be a lot harder than I'm imagining. Then that's why I'm kind of interested. I will record and commentate as much as I can over it, but that video, if you hear me go silent randomly, it's most likely because I'm just like hyper focused. And I think I'll try to commentate a lot over that video, but I'm not going to be doing voiceovers. So it won't be like it won't be me playing a recording of my trip and then talking and commentating over it. It'll just be live commentary, which is how all of the style of my videos are. So that's sort of the approach I want to make with my YouTube channel, and I will keep it that way for this. So you will be hearing live commentary on the God Wars. It'll most likely be my first time going in as my four-man hardcore group, because I want you guys to catch all that chaos and madness that it's going to involve. It's going to be extremely difficult. It's going to be a lot of fun though, and whatever goes wrong goes wrong. Whatever happens happens, because you know it's going to be way harder than I'm imagining. I think just the respawn time is just going to come around way quicker than I'm imagining, and if I'm not like clearing out the minions and having a good 20 to 30 seconds of breathing time to figure out what how to set up all my other accounts, get all the proper potioning off, restore my stats, get boosts back up, put on my Warhammer, spec on, Warhammer. I got to do this to three accounts on the sidelines that are attacking, and then my tank has to be healthy, ready to pull aggro for the next kill. I got to be in the position underneath the boss, ready to attack as soon as it spawns. If I let that boss trickle over to my attackers and I'm not prepared, it's just going to be an instant four-man telly. Like, there's no way I'm going to risk anything chaotic like that going down. I'm just going to pretty much have to bail because I won't be able to sort of recognize where every account's at and who has the tank. I'm just going to bolt. I'm just going to dip out because not going to be worth risking it for that single trip. I'll just go back and get kill count, re-gear. So hopefully that doesn't happen, and I just get some clean aggros and can do a nice successful first trip. And after the first couple trips, as I get more and more used to alt management in the God Wars bosses, then you'll see a lot more cleaner trips. But yeah, super excited to begin showing that recording. That it's going to be a lot of fun for me, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And just know that, yeah, I will be pretty much fresh out of the gate going in my first trip on video. I'll probably try to record secondary ones of the same boss, but typically I won't record every single trip I do, because it's just going to be a lot easier for me to keep my focus on actually doing the encounter rather than having to try to put commentary over it, so it's not just a completely silent video and whatnot. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm sure anyone following along is highly anticipating this. I am as well. I've been waiting for this for over a year now. I mean, this is one of the main reasons that I thought of whenever I made a single solo hardcore group. Well, any group Iron kind of looks at team bossing, right? I think God Wars and like Corp, you can do Nightmare, you can do raids, you can do Nex, you can do Calvite Queen, you can do Wilderness bosses together. But when you're in a hardcore group, you're locked into prestige, which means to keep prestige, you cannot do any of these team encounters with anybody outside of your group. So like I can't do any raids with other people besides my group members, and since my group members are myself, I can't do raids with anybody. I would have to alt myself in the raid, and I can't really do that. Raid mechanics are way too demanding of attention, and there's just no way I'm going to be able to pull any of that off without risking like losing a life. So yeah, it's just a solo ride. It's when I made these accounts, God Wars was like the first thing I had in mind, because I always remember, okay, soloing God Wars, soloing Bandos on a single Iron Man account is brutal. You're tanking and you have to do all of the boss's health yourself. However, when you start adding teammates into the equation, now you have a dedicated tank who's not responsible for killing the entire boss every single kill. You have DPS accounts that are just smacking away, doing good damage output, and they're not having to tank the boss, which means they're typically not brewing away their stats, brewing away their super boosts, and they can just get off good damage to the boss. So just even throwing one or two accounts into the equation makes the God Wars fight a lot quicker, a lot cleaner, and you just have more supplies and more damage output to work with. So that was always like the first thought when I was thinking of, okay, having my own group, I can team up with my own accounts in these boss rooms and kind of farm the boss. Like with enough damage output, you can kill the boss fast enough to where it's barely gonna hit you, and then you're barely gonna take much damage, and then the minions have a huge health pool, so you can do things like blood barrage or guthans your health back up. Oh, that's a good shout. Maybe on the fourth account that doesn't have guthans, I will bring blood barrage instead of thralls. So my plan was to thrall on all four accounts. Um, but this is going to be a tricky decision. So here's my options. I have three sets of guthans, and I'm going to be using the guthans on them. So I'll bring thralls on those three. Now, the fourth account that doesn't have guthans, I'm thinking I'm going to want to bring blood barrage instead of a fourth account with thralls because, well, one, thralls drains your prayer. A thrall every time to summon, so if I want to summon one a kill, it's going to be 6 prayer points, and that's per account. So I'm losing a big chunk of a restore, like a fourth or a fifth of a restore dose every time just to cast thralls. Yeah, it's adding DPS, but I think 3 instead of 4 isn't going to be too much of a difference. That's some good guaranteed chip damage because thralls hit through defense. So they constantly hit 0s, 1s, 2s, and 3s, and it does not roll against the target's defense. So God War's bosses having high defense, thralls are perfect because they do not matter what the defense is. So that's going to be good chip damage. In my fourth account that doesn't have guthans, I will bring maybe blood barrage so I can stack the meleeer up on top of the ranger after the mage minion is dead, and then try to land some blood barrages on them. And since they the minions have a lot of health, I can easily heal up to full on that account, and then hopefully the guthans heals me on the other 3 accounts and be able to sustain back to full health without using supplies in between kills. So then the difficulty will just come down to each kill duration, how quickly Bandos goes down, and surviving throughout, because he's going to be ranging my tank for 30s, and there's no way to avoid that. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of scenarios. So those are my options. I think, I obviously I wanted to guthans. Well, I definitely want some method to heal on my tank, because he's naturally going to be lower just because I can't protect from the boss fully. I'm going to be taking their boss's ranged hits. But if I live on the kill with like 60 or 70 health, which is a perfectly fine health to sit at towards the end of the kill when you know the boss is going to go down and you're going to be able to guthans it back up, I don't know if I want to bring the guthans on the tank or try to make him be that one account that doesn't have guthans and use blood barrage to combo on the minions. One of the reasons I'm thinking it might be good on the tank is because for the account that I was going to tank with, I don't know if I'm going to bring the Varric skirt on him. Again, because I have 3 sets of guthans and 3 Varric skirts. So, there's a lot of little micro decisions here to be made of like which account's going to get a V skirt, which one's just going to camp Guthan skirt, which one's going to bring blood barrage, which ones are going to have thralls. So, I'll work more of that out as I get closer to actually going in. And right now, I just constantly training, doing some Slayer, making supplies, and just finishing out, rounding off the remaining gear that I need. So yeah, there's a lot that I've been doing. There's a lot that I still am doing to be able to reach this final this God Wars prep. So one of the other huge additions to this entire situation is I'm just now remembering I have blood shards. So if I look in my banks, I have multiple blood shards. I believe I have 5. If not, I know I at least have like 3 or 4. So, I'll be using an Amulet of Fury instead of a Torture. There's no reason for me to use a Torture. I have 1 Torture, but every account has a Fury. So again, this goes back to the difference between Barrows gloves and Ferocious gloves. I will be using Barrows gloves and a Fury rather than the alternative of trying to get a Torture or Ferocious gloves, because the losing all the defensive stats from the Fury and the Barrows gloves to upgrade to the offensive bonuses of a Torture and Pharaoh gloves, it's just not going to be worth it in this war of attrition. Now, when you're just a single account doing a raid or a PVM on your own as a solo account, where the boss's mechanics are more so like dodging spikes on the ground, dodging falling rocks, things like that that happen in raids, a lot less of the game comes down to your like defensive bonuses. A lot more of it comes down to just clicking and moving and dodging with your character, and your defensive stats just don't even play a role. So God Wars is not like this. God Wars has zero like movement mechanics. It's entirely about the boss's sort of base auto attacks that are going to hit you, and it does roll off of like your defensive bonuses. So having these high defensive stats is definitely extremely valuable. And the nice thing is the Fury, even without the Blood Fury, the Blood Shard attachment, I would still prefer to use the Fury over the Torture, and that works out perfectly because the Fury is required over a Torture. You cannot add a Blood Shard to a Torture, so you have to be using a Fury, and you can upgrade it with a Blood Shard to the Blood Fury, which gives you passive melee damage healing. So it's like a little bit of melee lifesteal. So it only applies to melee damage, but since I'm going to be meleeing these bosses, that's perfectly good. And I'll be just getting some casual heals throughout the fight. Actually, now that I think about it, if my attackers have a Blood Fury, they're basically going to be full HP every time. So I think I might just go on one of my attackers without any sort of like secondary healing. I might just not have Guthans on one of them and not care. I might not even bring like Blood Barrage on him, because with a Blood Fury, I might just be healing up to full in between fights just from the casual passive effects of the Blood Fury. So, not sure what the RNG of that is. If, I know it's pretty frequent to occur. I think it's like a high chance that the Blood Fury procs. But what it heals is what, like half of your damage, and if you low roll your hit, then it might still proc, but it's not going to heal you very much because it's based on the actual hit that you did. So, and then after healing, I might get chipped by a minion or something, and then, or I might just get chipped a lot during the kill and then not get a lot of good procs. So I might still be low anyway, but I think I'm just going to manage that by just using food to heal on the fourth account, and then that'll save me the effort of having to Guthans all four. I'll just use Guthans on 3 accounts, primarily my tank, and then all the other alt attackers will just, rely on either Guthans or that Blood Fury to heal. So, yeah, a lot of big plans coming up. As, the date approaches closer and closer here, I'm doing a lot of prep in game, but I'm also mentally preparing. I'm also planning out, what kind of gear switches I'm going to bring, what kind of gear upgrades do I need to still search for. Sure, it would be nice to go get a third and fourth pair of primordial boots, but as it stands, I only have 2 primordial crystals, so I can only wear 2 primordial boots. So I guess I'm just fine with wearing 1 pair of dragon boots. And I say 1, and you're like, well, what do you mean only 1? You would have to wear 2 dragon boots and 2 primordials to fit 4 accounts. I actually sniped, and this is a huge loot. Doing grotesque guardians for combat achievements, I sniped a black tourmaline core. Now that is an attachment to when I finally snipe Bando's boots at Bando's, and I can upgrade the Bando's boots to the Guardian boots. So that's a huge tank gear boot switch. So my main tank will then go from primordial boots to the Guardian boots, which will give him stronger defensive stats. And then my attacker, 2 of my attackers, which were using dragon boots, one of them will be able to then pick up that spare primordial boot that I'll be switching out with. So then I'll only have one account that's using dragon boots and two have prims, and then the one account will just, my main tank will have the guardian boots. So I'll have three basically best in slot boots there, and just one account will be using some scuffed dragon boots. But they're not that bad. The 4 strength is mostly what I'm interested in. I have other options like holy sandals, and if I get dupe bandos boots, but I don't think it's worth it because I'd just rather have that strength bonus. Although I'll look at the defensive bonuses of bandos boots alone, and I'll see, because I know they have like a couple strength bonus attached to them. So going from dragon boots to bandos boots might be worth the defensive bonuses if they are significant. Plus, it's a bandos item, so that means I'll have to wear one less like god tier item to protect myself during getting kill counts. So really just depends on what the stats there are in the bandos boots, what kind of decision I make. But going forward, those are some of the things that I'm keeping in mind. Again, just always I'm mentally preparing and sort of writing down notes. I'm keeping like a notepad of like things that I want to remember. Like like I'll be writing up my full gear setup one of these days. Typically, if I'm just like hanging out at work and I'm bored or something, I'll just sit there and scribble on a little like note pad, just some ideas that I have for gear and different things that I want to bring. And when you lay it all out in front of you on paper, you can look at like the overview and really see like any holes that are missing. So, if I forgot like, what's my shield switch, right? Like, if I hadn't written this down and I'm just thinking like, okay, God Wars do damage, I'm just going to bring a defender. But what I got to remember is my tank's definitely going to want to use just a crystal shield, and I'm just going to be camping the crystal shield. So not even going to bring a defender on my tank, but while gearing all my accounts, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, defender for sure on my attackers. That's a guarantee because they don't need the shield. And then in doing so, I just mindlessly pull out the defender on my tank as well and not realize that I'm missing one of the primary gear setups, tank pieces for my gear setup. So it's the little things like that that you got to just make sure that you're figuring out. Obviously, if I get there and I get kill count and I walk in and I'm like, I forgot my shield or something silly like that, it's just a simple reset, go get kill count again. But I don't want to have to do that. I want to just go in strong here, know my limits, know exactly what I need to get out of this. So yeah, it's gonna be a journey, and I'm happy to show some of this as soon as we get it underway here. Expect in some of the upcoming videos as things get really close to see some little sneak previews of like my gear setup, and then any additional things I'm going to be doing to prepare for this. I don't truly need like full 99s, like 99 attack and strength. I'll most likely be willing to go in with just the 99 defense, because that'll give me as tanky of survivability stat-wise as I can possibly get. And then if I don't have 99 attack, like I might just send it. But yeah, just working on Slayer, which helps pad up the prayer, which gives me some quality of life in terms of not having to restore as much, not having, getting more out of every altar restore, getting more out of each potion dose. Just having a higher base level allows me to sit at a more comfortable level and not have to worry about running out. When I'm managing 4 prayer pools, it's a lot to think about. So gonna be rounding off this video here, and those are just some of my thoughts on the initial God Wars projections here. Again, starting with Zami and then moving to Bandos. So I know I talked about a lot about the Bandos, but that's because it'll be following up Zami right after. So there's no task needed for Bandos. Zami will be the one that I have a greater demon task, but Bandos, there is no task associated with it. So I will be wearing a tank helmet. I won't be able to use the Slayer helmet and get those bonuses. So once I get the spear and my greater demon task is finished, I'm just gonna be transitioning right over to Bandos. Like there's no waiting period. So once everything starts playing out, it's just gonna be like boom, 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 moving from one thing to the next. The accounts will have finished their slaying, they'll be finished with stats. I'll have high enough prayer, and there's nothing else. There's no other variables that I need to worry about. I'm just going to be fully prepared. So, thank you everybody for tuning in, and I do hope you enjoy the videos. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment if you have anything to mention, and stay tuned for future uploads. I will see you next time.